Welcome to another episode of Pilots Say What, where we get to hear what pilots have to say. My name is Zach, and I host this podcast from week to week here at Thrust Flight, and we talk about all things, especially general aviation, CFIs, student pilots, and what it's like to get through your rating so that you can make your career out of aviation. Today, we're talking to Jackson. We've had Jackson on the podcast before, but you were a student, and now you're a CFI, and I think that's going to be really exciting to talk a little bit about that transition into becoming a CFI and how to get a job as a CFI, a little bit about some of the difficulties that we know about going through private, instrument, commercial. There's a lot of good things to talk about today, and also you're pretty young and you've managed to get to this point in your flight journey, and I'm excited for people to hear about what qualifies you. And I think by listening to this podcast and by listening to the previous one, you can tell you've got a good head on your shoulders. I mean, I'd let you teach me how to fly a plane, but without any further ado, would you mind introducing yourself for our audience?
Yeah, my name's Jackson Howard. I recently got hired back as a CFI here at Thrust after, working in Oklahoma for a while.
Yeah.
Last time I was on the podcast, I was like the day that I finished the program. I finished commercial multi. So, yeah, excited to be here.
Yeah, it's really cool. It's exciting to talk to you since I remember on the last episode, I think you said that. You're like, I had just finished. Like, that's great. Can I ask you a quick question?
Mm-hmm.
You look young. How old are you?
I'm 20.
Okay,
20.
gotcha.
Yep.
I didn't know if that was like something that you're okay with sharing.
Totally.
But I remember talking to you because you kind of are young, but I feel like you don't sound so young when I talk to you, and I don't really know what that means. But you sound like you know what you're talking about, at least for the things that you choose to talk about, and it's always a good conversation. So, can you tell us a little bit about where you're from?
Yeah, so I'm from Oklahoma City. Went to school in Edmond, if you know, that's just north of Oklahoma City.
Mm-hmm.
Grew up there all my life. Out of high school, I came to Thrust. I was kind of, last time we talked about, I was between going to a college program and going to Thrust. Right. Came to Thrust. Very happy I came to Thrust.
Right.
That's
the rest is history, right? Yeah. And you got interested in aviation because of family, friends? What was it again?
I don't even know. Honestly, I just got bit by the aviation bug, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, no, I don't really have family that are pilots or anything like that.
Right.
But since I was a kid, I've always thought planes were cool and everything.
Right.
So, yeah.
They got you far enough. Well, then it comes time, you're graduating high school, and you're like, I think I'm just going to go for it. Yeah. I mean, without a lot of, maybe someone who has that sort of experience around you, what was that like? I mean, was it not like a completely unknown thing?
It was nerve-wracking for sure because it's hard to know exactly what you're getting into, but I'm kind of a person that really researches things before I do them. So,
okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think, online, videos and just, people talking about it.
Right. Well, were there things that you were like concerned about when thinking about starting flight training? Like, what obstacles were like at the forefront of your mind?
Mm-hmm. Well, one, I had never been in a small plane until Thrust.
Yeah.
Until my discovery flight.
Right.
And I knew I was gonna like it, but I was like, what if I'm like bad at this?
Yeah.
What if I'm bad at flying a plane?
Right.
Which I think that anybody can fly a plane.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody can do it. Some people take longer, some people take shorter, but
right.
It's not rocket science.
Yeah, it's literally not.
Yeah. So yeah, I think my biggest concern was just worrying that I would not be good at flying.
Well, you did land a position here at Thrust, and I think that qualifies you to some level. Can you tell me a little bit about how it's going now that you're here at Thrust as an instructor, and if you have any students or anything like that?
Yeah. Well, it's going great. It's everything I hoped it to be. Yeah, I've got one primary student right now. He's a double I. His name's Austin. He's like a superstar student. So I got an easy one to start off with. But yeah, we just had our first flight yesterday. So yeah, that's been awesome.
Yeah. They usually start you off with around CFI, right, to get used to the right seat and everything like that, right?
Well, for CFI, I'm in the left seat, because the student's in the right seat.
That makes sense.
But yeah, so we'll start sometimes with double I, instrument, or commercial. Those are the three we can kind of start with.
Okay, sweet.
So yeah, starting with double I, and I think I've got an instrument student coming soon. So
Right. Well, congratulations again
Yeah.
on having a position here at Thrust.
Mm-hmm.
But you had a position before this too, right?
I
So you're
did.
not necessarily in the same position that a lot of our new CFIs are in, which is they complete our program, they go through the interview process, and they get trained like a little extra training as a CFI, and then they start their instructing part of their career.
Right.
But you did instruct before this. Can you tell me a
I
little
did.
bit about what it was like when you finished your program here at Thrust Flight,
Mm-hmm.
even though you didn't become an instructor right away?
Yeah, so once I finished here, I interviewed with Thrust, got in the holding pattern for a while,
Hmm.
went to Oklahoma, that's where I'm from,
Right,
and instructed at a small Part 61 school there,
right.
and also did some independent instructing kind of on the side a little bit. But yeah,
Okay, gotcha. So I mean, you've got a little bit under your belt. For people who don't understand what the holding pattern is, at Thrust Light
right.
specifically, for the CFIs, can you explain that to me?
Yeah, so basically when you interview, they don't always have the need for as a ton of instructors that
Right.
month. So they can put you in what we call the holding pattern. It's like a wait list
Yeah.
to get hired. So that's
Right.
kind of what I was in for a little while.
Okay, gotcha. And
Yeah.
then you went to that other school. How did you choose that school to apply to and become a an instructor there? How did yeah.
Well, I didn't really choose that school. It was
Okay.
that I chose about 100 schools and applied to a bunch of
Oh,
different places.
copy.
And that's one of the places that called back. So yeah, that's kind of how the market is.
Yeah.
But I mean, things are improving right now. But yeah, so I was kind of the day I passed my CFI EOC, I started looking for jobs,
Okay. Right.
and that's one word of advice. As soon as you pass, like if you're a thrust student, as soon as you pass CFI, even before that, be like,
Yeah.
hey, I'm about to be a CFI. Start applying to places because you're going to be a lot more attractive
Mhm.
as a instructor
Mhm.
to a school you've been talking to for 3 or 4 months, as opposed to somebody who's like, hey, I'm now like I don't have anything to do and I need an instructing job or I'm going to starve.
Right.
So if you can start applying and start working for that job as soon as you can, I
Mhm.
would do it.
Yeah, it gets that ball rolling. Probably
Right.
gets a little experience on what those conversations look like, those interviews, those applications. Well, you spent some time at this other school. Was that somewhere like? Did you want to stay there at all?
No.
I mean, you came back
Yeah.
here to Thrust. It sounds like there was a reason, maybe, but
Yeah.
I mean, can you tell me a little bit
So
about that?
the no, I did not want to stay there. Thrust is the place I wanted to be.
Okay.
I mostly I'd say, and I was talking with my dad the other day about this. It's like we were
Mm,
talking about why I wanted to be at Thrust,
right.
and the reason I came to Thrust over going to a 61 school where yeah maybe it is going to be a little bit cheaper and I could save a little bit more money.
Hmm.
I came to Thrust because I wanted more of a college experience, and I wanted to. I mean, Thrust has such a community that really. I mean, I've
Hmm.
toured. I toured a ton of different schools before I came here,
Right.
and none of them are like Thrust. So,
Mm,
I wanted that as an instructor too. You're not gonna get that instructing at a small 61 school, but
yeah.
I mean, already I've made friends with a lot of instructors and a lot of people here. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
That makes sense. That makes sense to me. And plus, you know the program and how
yeah,
it works,
yeah.
and and then you have connections here because you went to school here.
Hmm.
That makes sense. So you get back to Thrust. You've started instructing now. I want to know a little bit about what it took to get from zero time, pretty new in aviation, without a lot of connections of anyone in aviation. Can you tell me a little bit about the journey to getting through your first three ratings? Because what happens is people always want to know how long instrument takes. Not instrument. I'm sorry. People always want to know how long the private should take them, maybe at a school like Thrust,
Hmm.
and then they're like, what's the hardest part of it all?
Hmm.
Can you tell me a little bit about private and what the hardest part of the first three ratings was?
So yeah, private definitely the hardest rating.
Okay.
Like people that say instrument, I really don't get what they're saying because it's not as hard as private.
Right.
Private, you're learning how to fly a plane, and you've got to fly it to these like standards and
Right.
learn all this different stuff. It's like, I mean, I've heard it a million times. It's like drinking from a what is it? Drinking from a fire hose.
Right.
I mean, so much information really quick.
Yeah.
So private's one that takes quite a range depending on you as a person.
Mhm. Yeah.
So for me it took 2 months, which is kind of on the probably on the shorter end.
Okay.
um
Yeah.
the-
Did you about how many hours you had when you finished private?
uh, upper 40s, I think.
Oh yeah, that's on the shorter end. I
Mm.
think because we're a Part 141 school with the examining authority,
Mm.
you're able to, the minimum's like now like 40, I think,
Mm.
which for Part 61, what is it, like 60 something? Or I don't remember the number.
Yeah, honestly, I don't remember off
Yeah,
the top of my head either.
That's okay. That's
Yeah,
okay.
no, the thing is, most Part 61 schools, especially the one I was at, people don't get done in the minimums, so the
Yeah.
minimums don't even really matter. but
Okay,
yeah.
that's a good point then. That's a good point. I like that that we have a lower minimum, but we know that sometimes people aren't going to meet the minimum, that it takes a little longer, but it still typically falls below the minimum of Part 61. I just don't remember what the number is.
Right.
That being said, you finished a little bit on the shorter end. It was like 2 months ish in for private. I mean, what was it like in commercial then? I mean, was there any point in these first 3 ratings where you felt like you were kind of getting stuck and hitting a plateau?
Yes.
Yeah.
Commercial was probably harder than instrument for me.
Okay.
Probably. Well, there was a whole weather thing, so I waited quite a while for my commercial check ride,
Right.
and didn't really take refresher flights like I probably should have.
Yeah.
And so I failed my first check ride.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'd say that was a pretty big plateau.
Right.
I was pretty kind of at the end of that, I was kind of like distraught about it, but looking back, it's like, okay, yeah, I needed to fail that, because you need to learn from it, and so it was a great learning experience for sure.
What would you say to yourself, because you're an instructor now, what would you say to yourself at that time when you failed? What would you say to the student version of yourself?
One, that it's not that big of a deal.
Mhm.
Like I'm like, oh, I'm never getting hired by an airline,
Yeah.
and it's not the end of the world,
Yeah.
for one.
Yeah.
And honestly, be grateful, that, because like the thing I failed on, I needed to fail on, and I needed to improve on that thing.
Right.
So be grateful that they didn't just pass you, because they felt bad or something.
Exactly.
So yeah.
Well, and so you have had some students before. Now that you've instructed a little bit, can you tell me one of the most difficult things that you helped a student overcome so far? I mean, I know you've only had so much time with your students, but that's something I'm very curious about.
I've had a student with some pretty obvious, like, hazardous attitudes. So that's something that needs to be addressed, and
It's a tough position to be in, to
and
try to fix someone's attitude.
that is a very tough position to be in.
Yeah.
Absolutely. To kind of correct that, and you want to be friends with your students, but you don't want to be so close friends that you can't be firm with them, and be able to tell them straight up,
Right.
the deal. So
I mean, in that scenario, were you able to kind of like overcome some of that with that student?
yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
because it's not always easy, especially as a newer instructor, and you're young. I'm sure that it can feel, or maybe it can be difficult to assert some sort of authority. Can you tell me about that a little bit more?
Yeah, I think that, in that specific scenario, you gotta people have to realize flying isn't all. It's a great time. It's so much fun, but it's not like I think people ride a motorcycle and equate flying to be like the same thing. It's like, no, flying is very safety focused. You have to be safety focused, or you're gonna get yourself killed.
Right.
It's not a, like, I've had family, just before I was born, 2 of my great uncles, they died in a plane crash. So I told my student that story, and I'm like, dude, this really is not something to mess around with.
Yeah.
It's very serious. It's fun, but it's very serious, and it needs to have respect shown to it.
Right, and that's I like the way you put that, honestly, especially comparing it to the motorcycle thing. Yeah, it's you ride a motorcycle, and we know it's dangerous, and you take a risk because that's what people do often, right?
Yeah.
But aviation is not really like that. There's
No.
risks that you know of and you don't take.
Yeah.
So that's good. What's one of the main things that you're happy about being back at Thrust for?
The community.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's the thing. The
Yeah.
community, and being back here with friends in Addison. I just love it. I had such a great experience as a student, and made so many great friends, that's the thing I was most looking forward to.
So after spending some time, doing some independent instruction and instructing at the other school, what's one of the things that maybe you didn't realize was so? Can you tell me one thing that you kind of maybe took for granted at Thrust, or something that you didn't realize until you came back?
Yeah, I mean the structure for one. If you have an independent student, it's like you go to your first lesson, and you're like, I looked up a bunch of like syllabus and like a bunch of stuff, trying to figure out what I was gonna do, and
Yeah.
it's like, at Thrust, there is some degree of that, but it's like it's structured. You have
Right.
something to follow.
Right.
And so independent instruction, it's like you got to know what you're gonna do. You
Yeah.
can't just whim it.
Right. And then but you did kind of figure that out a little bit on your own
Yeah.
before, right? Can you tell me one way that you might have like, you know, structured some of the teachings that you had?
For independent.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I did use Sporty's syllabus a little bit.
Okay.
And then, I mean, once you get to know your student, you find, okay, these are the things they need to work on. These are things that maybe they don't need to work on quite as much.
Right.
So once you fly with somebody, it's not that difficult. But
Right.
but that first flight, especially as an independent instructor, is pretty nerve-wracking, because you're like, well, what are they gonna want to do? And like,
Yeah, you're like, how do I know
you
how
need
to?
to be the one that comes with the plan.
Okay.
So
Okay. Uh, there's a lot of people who have gotten to a point in their flying journey to where they want to start teaching and instructing at this point, and hopefully build some hours. Um, you managed to get, maybe, how many independent students did you end up having?
Well, I had some, it was kind of complicated. I had some that I never even really flew with. They wanted me as their instructor, and then, as soon as the independent stuff was starting to pick up,
Okay.
is when Thrust hired.
Okay.
So I didn't fly a ton of independent students.
Okay.
I think I had 3
Okay.
that were going to fly with
Well,
me.
the reason I asked that is because I'm curious about how you found some students, or how they found you.
Yeah. Well, my first one was a family friend who, her instructor had gone and was at the airlines and just couldn't fly with her very much, like once a month. And so that was the first one.
Right.
And then she introduced me to this plane that was available, a Cessna 150 in Ponca City. You know where that is? It's, North Oklahoma.
Okay.
So I contacted the owner of that plane, was like, hey, can I use your plane to instruct her? And then, so, got checked out in that plane, did all that.
Okay.
And then met some people at the airport, just kind of being there, you meet people.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so I got some students there. But
okay, it's just kind of
at the airport. So really, it's like you get your first student, first maybe 2.
Yeah.
And the word spreads. Like, I've got a couple other buddies that are independent CFIs, and it's like, yeah, your first few are hard to get, because like, I mean, you go on Facebook groups and somebody says they need an instructor, and there's 100 replies,
Yeah, exactly.
But once the word spreads, and I mean, a student pilot, odds are they know another student pilot,
Right.
and they might need an instructor, So I think once you get your first couple, it spreads, and you can be busy. But
that makes sense. Like, freelance tends to take off that way, especially if you're friendly and people like you, and they think that you do a good job, that sort of thing. Well, to kind of fast forward a little bit, I want to ask you if you have any advice for anyone who's looking for an instructor role or a CFI role. The reason I asked that is because it sounds like you've landed about 3 at this point. 3 different, almost. Like, you had at one school, you have Thrust, but then you even have some independent students. So you might know a thing or two about, at least, finding work as a CFI.
Yeah. So and I didn't mention this yet, but before I got the offer from Thrust, like just before that, I got an offer from another school in Oklahoma City. Where I would have gotten some decent hours, nothing like I would get at Thrust, and I mean, I wanted to be at Thrust. That was the place I've been trying to be for a while now. So so that job, I rewind for independent instructing. I made kind of like a network of Cessna 150s that I had kind of spaced around Oklahoma. So I had one in Wiley Post, which is like in Oklahoma City.
Right.
One at Sundance, which is just a few miles away.
Right.
And then one in Ponca City. And so I had those 3 Cessna 150s, so that if I got an independent student, they could choose where they wanted to fly out of, know. And so one of the schools that I did an independent instructing out of their planes for
Right.
gave me an offer just before thrust.
Okay.
And so
Interesting.
so my advice for landing a CFI job, because I won't lie, like it's pretty tough market right now.
Yeah.
So what you should do is go be an independent CFI. Try and get a couple students, just a couple, like two. Two is manageable.
Yeah.
Right. Go to flight schools and say, hey, I'm an independent instructor, and I have two students that would like to use your planes. Can I do independent instructing out of your planes?
Right.
It's a win-win. There's really not much, unless there's limited aircraft availability.
Yeah.
There's not much reason for them to say no. You can't use our planes for independent instructing.
Right.
So if they say yes, okay, you go get checked out in their planes and you start instructing those students every once in a while in their planes. Then if they have to hire an instructor as an employee, like they have an instructor need,
Yeah.
they're going to go to you first, because one, you're checked out in their plane, and two, hopefully they know that you're a good instructor, right?
Yeah.
They've gotten to know you. You've been there for a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So they're going to hire you over somebody that just dropped off a resume or something like that. Right. So that's what happened with that school that gave me the offer just before thrust. But
yeah, that's awesome. And then there's a lot of reasons why that can work. I mean, it's not too hard to find somebody who says, hey, to find somebody who wants to learn how to fly, even just casually. And then it doesn't have to be a long-term plan for them. So you did a little bit of that, and that worked out for you. That's awesome.
Yeah, and I mean, I had another buddy that did the exact same thing in Oklahoma. Yeah. He did the exact same thing. He had independent students, went to a school, was like, hey, can I use your planes? They said yes. Then they started providing him students, and so he was basically an instructor for them at that point, so.
All right, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, so what do you want to achieve in aviation? Is there somewhere you want to work? Is there like an area you want to live in?
Honestly, I'm open to like pretty much anything. I mean, I'm loving instructing right now.
Right.
So I'm kind of taking it step by step, but the airlines are cool. I think I'd enjoy the airlines. Absolutely. I think I'd enjoy corporate. Yeah. Charter, I think would be cool. I think that like career destination, I think like net jets and flex jet really appeal to me.
That's awesome.
Those corporate jets, I think I just think they're kind of cooler than the airliners,
Yeah, it's a little less.
737s aren't that cool, but yeah.
Well, we're gonna get some people in the comments, but that's funny. Some people that's like their favorite plane, right?
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, 737, it's pretty basic. Like, yeah, I don't know.
I can imagine what you're saying, though. I mean, I don't. Okay, so again, for the audience, all right, I'm not a pilot, but the smaller jets and the corporate jets. I mean, it feels like you get to like fly something a little bit more, I don't know.
Sporty.
Yeah, sporty. Yeah. I guess that's what it is.
Yeah.
So that sounds pretty cool to me. So what different kinds of planes have you flown at this point?
Let's see. Haven't flown a ton of different types. I've flown a few different types of Piper Cherokees and Archers. So flown Cherokee 140, Cherokee, 151.
Right.
Flew a 1962 Cessna 172. That's the one I instructed mostly out of in that school in Oklahoma City.
Yeah, a little older, but how was that?
It's older. It has wings and it flies, but awesome. That's about it. So I mean, it was a decent plane.
Yeah.
I missed the G1000 a lot. That we had here. Definitely missed AC and all the nice features, but so flew that Cessna probably the most, the 172 Golf, and then flew a few different Cessna 150s. That I did all my independent instruction was in the Cessna 150s.
Right. I'm curious then. You had to apply and do an interview here at Thrust, right? Mm-hmm. Did you have to do another interview after working at the other positions? And at the other school, did you have to do another interview to get here at Thrust?
I did.
Gotcha.
I did another interview.
Did that come up in your interview at all?
Mm-hmm.
The different planes you've flown and the type of instruction you've done?
Yep. So it was kind of a different interview than the first one, because the first one, he was like, hey, I've already interviewed you, and I want to know like what you've been doing. Tell me lessons you've learned and that kind of stuff. So it was a different interview.
Right, got you. And just for the audience's understanding, we do the holding pattern. Like everyone who goes through our school and finishes our program is guaranteed at least an interview. And like you said earlier, maybe some of the positions that we need to be open in order for you to have a job aren't there yet, but they know they want you. And so they put you in what we call the holding pattern, which is a wait list. But then you went off to work somewhere else. And so you getting another, like you coming back is kind of a not your typical situation.
Definitely.
So, but you were able to get another interview. And I just wanted to know if you had to speak to that. And it sounds like that was helpful.
Yeah.
Is there any other positions that you were considering taking at any point in time in that whole hiring process? And were there anything that you were kind of excited about?
Yeah. Well, over thrust, no. Thrust was like the place that I wanted to be,
Right.
you know, and I knew that, you know. I mean, I applied to, I was probably over 100 applications total.
Yeah.
You know, it was kind of like a part-time job, just applying to places, but
yeah.
Honestly, like sending cold emails and stuff like that is rough, and it doesn't have a great turnout. But you know, you got to get creative, and sometimes you have to pave your own way. You know, if the system isn't working for you, like if you're really struggling to get hired by a school, you might have to make your own kind of system. You might have to get your own students. You know, do it yourself. So,
and that's what it seemed like you did. That's why it's so interesting to think that you managed to like get connected with the schools enough for them to be like, oh, well, now we'll hire them, because breaking that ice is the hardest part. It seems like. Let's go back to your training. I want to ask some questions that you would still, you know, that would give us a little bit of insight on how to fly a plane better, right? For example, in private, I mean, people go from never being in a plane sometimes to taking off and landing by themselves in a matter of weeks, right? So to me, that blows my mind a little bit. Can you give some advice to the new student who's just now learning how to fly planes, and maybe give me an example of if you could think of one?
Yeah, landing's probably the hardest part.
Yeah.
Nobody is, not even like the most senior airline pilot at American Airlines, has a perfect landing every single time.
You're right.
Right. It's not perfect every time. So don't beat yourself up too much over the landing. Keep your eyes at the end of the runway. That's one thing. Almost every time I have a student that's just botching landings, and then I look over as they're landing, and I look at their eyes, and they're looking down right in front of them.
They're trying to see where the road is.
Right. No, you want to look down at the end of the runway. It's a much better sight picture, you know. So yeah, that's kind of my advice.
Yeah.
Don't beat yourself up. It takes everybody. You know, don't compare yourself to others. I mean, honestly, private is one of those things. It's like some people pick it up really quick, and some people don't as quick. And I think there's a ton of factors that factor into that. But I think after private, that disparity between people that, okay, they have this natural like sense of like control over flying, and I was actually talking to somebody the other day. I had kind of a theory that like people that grow up driving like golf carts and like handling machinery and you know, stuff like that, have a better time when they first start flying, because they just have better like situational awareness and I don't know, you know, mind muscle connection type of thing.
Right, that makes sense to me.
You know,
but you're saying like not to compare yourself to some of those people, right?
But then after private, I think that those disparities even out a lot, because it's I mean, instrument, that's, you're not really, I mean, you're flying autopilot half the time, you know. And you've already passed private, you know, so you can fly the plane at that point, you know.
Exactly.
So I think the whole like whether you have a feel of it or not initially, there might be a big disparity between you and some classmates like right away, but eventually it's going to even out, and you know, trust the process.
And then it's whoever applies himself, right? So if you're going into instrument, what's one of the most difficult parts about applying yourself in the instrument rating?
I think that initially instrument, like the first week of instrument, is the hardest, because you finish private and you feel like you're on top of the world, because I can fly a plane, I can fly my family around if I wanted to, you know, all that type of stuff. And then you enter instrument and you're like, what's an MDA? What's a MOCA? What's all these different acronyms that I haven't heard of in these months I've spent on private. So it's a ton of new information.
Right.
But once you kind of get your head wrapped around it after like a week or two,
Yeah.
really instrument is it's not that hard. The flying for instrument especially, I think is like really easy because I mean it's very binary. Like either you're doing it or you're not.
Right. It's Can you explain that a little bit more? Because I
Yeah.
think I know what you're saying, but I want to hear it
So
from
with
you.
private, like you do a maneuver. Let's say you do a stall,
Okay.
and it's like I don't know your stage checker or examiner is like, yeah, that stall was good, but not great. And there are standards. There are like either you're in or out of standards, but it's a little bit more subjective, especially
Right.
with landings and things like that.
Okay.
Instrument is like you have this altitude. Like one of the more common things people bust their check rides on is going below an MDA. It's like
Okay.
minimum descent altitude.
Okay.
So if you go below that, you're going to fail. If you don't go below that, you're not going to fail.
Yeah.
So, and so
Okay.
you have these very specific margins of where you can be, on an approach or whatever you're doing. So, and especially like with holds and stuff like that, like
Right.
they're tough to get, but once you get them, it's like, I mean, either you're doing it right or you're not doing it right. There's no subjectivity in instrument.
Understood. Yeah, that makes sense to me. And that's how I imagine people explaining it in the past on past episodes. It's pretty clear cut.
Yeah.
So, but then you move into commercial after that. Now, commercial is like a whole nother shift in mentality. I feel like. Can you talk a little bit about the shift in mentality after going through private and instrument and then coming into commercial?
Yeah. So, I think my big mistake going into commercial is that I was still kind of flying like an instrument pilot where I'm keeping my eyes in. That's what I failed my check ride on, was not looking outside.
Right.
So I kept my eyes in on these two big G1000 screens 90% of the time, and it's supposed to be 90% of the time your eyes are outside, right? So
Right.
as soon as you finish the instrument, all right, eyes are back outside. You're a VFR pilot. Fly like a VFR pilot.
Right. Exactly.
And I mean, it's not safe to be flying with your eyes down. You're not going to see traffic. You're not aware.
Right.
So,
and a lot of times they may not be aware. Right. Not everyone's flying the nicest plane.
Yeah.
That has either radio. Even radio isn't necessarily. You can fly without a radio still.
Yeah.
So you need to be aware just in case someone else is not. And driving, you call it defensive driving. So I don't know if is there any sort of term for that on just situational awareness. Pretty much.
I don't know. Look out for those cowboys that fly without their ADS-B out and their radios. But yeah.
Right. Adjusting to looking outside the plane. What kind of reminded you to do that other than, I guess, the fact that you needed to? I mean, what allowed you to get better at looking outside the plane and be a VFR pilot?
Well, that's kind of the thing, is that I failed my commercial check ride on that. So it's like, and it was totally my fault. Like my instructor was like, hey, you need to be looking outside. And I just did not get in the habit of doing it. So, failed that first ride. I'm like, all right, I need to start looking outside, passed the second try, then went to CFI, and like my instructor, he'd like cover up my screen during maneuvers and stuff like that. And it was very helpful because my maneuvers actually got way better once I started keeping my eyes outside and just flying the plane based on, I mean, I feel like I've got a pretty good feel of the plane. And if I can feel the plane out and fly the maneuver, my maneuvers got a lot better once I started looking outside.
Yeah, so. Do you plan on using that sort of technique sometime for future students?
Absolutely.
And like, when do you think would be? I mean, this is a little bit hypothetical, maybe, but I'm curious about when do you think it would be appropriate to do that? And when do you think a student would get the most out of you covering up maybe some of their instruments so they could feel the plane?
Honestly, probably initially. I think that. I mean, people come from instrument into commercial and they're just used to looking down. So you just need to, drill that in day one. Like, all right. And I haven't even had a commercial student, so I'm not really speaking from experience.
Right.
Talking about what I'm going to do is, emphasize flying as a VFR pilot when you're VFR.
Okay, gotcha. And I'll ask you this. What's it feel like now to be an instructor at Thrust? I mean, I know it's going to be exciting, but is it not nerve-wracking a little bit?
It is nerve-wracking.
Yeah.
It is nerve-wracking for sure. But I mean, it's where I've wanted to be for a while. Okay. And I feel well prepared for it.
Okay.
So yeah, a little bit nerve-wracking just because it's like, all right, I don't want to, like, what if I tell the student, like, my biggest fear is like telling the student the wrong thing. and then they go to their state check or check ride and say that thing, and they fail because of me, and that's like my worst fear ever. Like the other day, I told the student the wrong thing, and then I went home that night, and I'm like, is that right? And so then did a little research, and then I was like, crap, that wasn't right. So then I messaged that student, and I'm like, hey, what I told you is not right. Don't repeat what I said.
Yeah, it wasn't me.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. I think that I would feel that way. It's hard not to have a little bit of imposter syndrome throughout this whole process.
Totally.
Did you feel that way at any point during your training, having a little bit of imposter syndrome at all?
During training here?
Yeah.
Possibly. Yeah. I mean, especially like soon as you finish CFI, it's like, yeah, I know the FOIs and all the stuff I've needed to pass CFI, but it's like, can I teach a student?
Practically.
And I think if thrust prepares you well, yes, you can teach a student, but you just haven't done it, so you've got to go do that. And once you start doing it, it's not that hard.
I think I was talking with someone earlier, and it seems like there's a need for the distinction between, ability and experience. Just because you don't have experience doesn't mean you have ability, but even really having experience doesn't mean you really have the most ability at the moment, or are that capable. I say that because as someone without a whole lot of experience, you know you're going to be capable, and so it's just a matter of getting the reps in, right?
Right.
And did you feel like that also plays a role in the training part of it all? Just getting the reps in, getting the flights in, getting the landings in. Can you tell me a little bit about how you progress every time you continue to move forward in your program through repetition?
Yeah, I mean, I think biggest example of that is in commercial. You do the powerful 180s.
Yeah.
And those are, they're real hard for some people, and some people they're not so hard. But they were decently hard for me. There were days I'd hit them, and then days I would not. So I was not very consistent with them. But you just got to do it. Do it on bad weather days where there's wind. Don't be like, oh, my personal minimum is 10 knots of crosswind. Well, yeah, if you're soloing, don't go with that. But if you're flying with an instructor, go push that limit. Go. Yeah. If your instructor's comfortable with it, trust in them.
I see what you're saying. Because you don't want to. You're kind of saying like don't be too afraid to do it, right?
Right. Yeah. I think people get afraid of winds and they don't they don't get the reps in because of that. So go and do it.
I've heard about that before. I want to ask you a little bit more about becoming a CFI because you said you went through it was almost like a part-time job to apply to all these roles. I'm kind of jumping around here, but I want to make sure I squeeze this in there.
Yeah.
Is there anything you learned not to do when looking for a position as a CFI?
Honestly, looking back, I mean, I'm not going to say don't send emails because it's like, it doesn't hurt, but I had, let's see, I had probably, around 100. I mean, that's just an estimate. It could be less or more, but I got, I think, 3 replies, and so that's kind of crazy.
It's a little bit.
Yeah.
I mean, those replies were just what? Sorry.
We'll keep your resume on file. Yeah. And so you reach back out and then you don't get a reply, and it's oh man, and you can't blame them because that they're getting so many emails from instructors who want jobs. So you can't do what everybody.
Even if they're not getting a lot, it's hard to stand out through email. Like, how do you get a sense of who someone is through an email?
Yeah, so. Email and a resume file is not enough. Yeah. So you've got to do something to stand out. I think the whole independent instruction and using their planes is a great way to get in front of them. You need to be able to provide value to that company.
Right. So. And would you think that it's safe to say that what they ultimately want is someone they can trust?
Yeah.
Right?
Totally.
Because it's not just, I can be a pilot. It's like, from an employer's perspective, I'm sure it's like, okay, yeah, I can hire. I mean, there's so many people I can hire, but how do I know I should hire you? Is it because you did your ratings in a certain number of time? Is it is it because you look a certain way? You know what I mean? Is it because you've flown a certain kind of plane? Is it because you went to a certain kind of school? And I'm in my mind, from the things that I hear you saying and from talking to other CFIs, it seems like it's always about just kind of like proving yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Would you say that that's sort of what your method is about?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, is there any other ways you could think to you try to prove yourself outside of that? Like, what opportunities would you be able to come up with?
It's tough. Honestly, like, I mean, going in person, I think can help, but there's also a lot of people that go in person and introduce
Yeah.
themselves too.
Right.
And
Did you do any of that? A little bit of that?
a little bit,
Yeah.
yeah. I didn't do a ton,
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't think it would have yielded
Mm.
much different results than, I think the whole, like, your grandfather will say, like, oh, go, you got to go give him a firm handshake and hand him your resume
Right.
and maintain eye contact.
Yeah.
I think that might be, it sounds so like new gen of me, but it might be a little outdated because you have so many people that have gone and done that. You're
Yeah.
not standing out by doing that anymore. Maybe back in the day you were,
Mm-hmm.
but you're not anymore. Everybody
Right.
does that. So it's like you're just another resume.
Yeah. Man, it's competitive
So,
out here. I
yep.
wonder what it's going to look
Find
like.
a way to provide value to the company and
Yeah.
find a way to, you have to be able to stand out. So if they have a dispatch job, go work that for a little while. They need to be able to get to know you, and they're not going to want to get to know you unless you're providing value to them. So
Gotcha. Well, then, what advice would you give to maybe, well, maybe even your past self or just students, you'll have? What advice would you give that would help a student pilot become more prepared to get a CFI role? What kind of things should they be thinking about?
more prepared to get a CFI role. Well,
Yes.
one, especially like no matter what school you're at, every day is an interview, right? So I mean, I think that most schools kind of know generally who they want to hire and who they don't want to if they went to that school.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Right.
so be professional, be punctual. You don't like if you're a guy that shows up late to all your flights,
Right.
they're not hiring you as an instructor, and like you know uh,
It-
you're not going to. So
Yeah, no, I can imagine that. That it almost points out another reason to kind of really do your research on the school you go to. You kind of have to like it a little bit.
mm-hmm.
I say that because I mean, it's kind of like your future's in their hands. You're putting your future in their hands, not just because they're teaching you how to fly, but because, like, let's say that you want to get a CFI role. I mean, you've got to be able to be professional and get along well with everyone. That's not hard. That's not easy to do when you're somewhere you don't like.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I bring that up.
Yeah.
Did you work? What did you do before? I know you came from high school and then you started flying with thrust.
Yeah.
Did you work any jobs or anything like that in
Mhm.
high school?
Yeah, so I worked as a rowing coach, and I coach kids during summer camps for rowing and stuff like that. But
Awesome.
but yeah, that was really my only job before coming here.
Yeah, I guess the reason I asked that is you can understand some of the dynamics of having to get along with other people
Mm-hmm.
at a job,
Mm-hmm.
and then now you've worked as an instructor at another school and things like that. Um, you know, can you tell me a little bit about like the kind of thing? Was there ever a time when you're like, I don't know if I agree or even like this person, but I know how to get along with them?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, can you tell me a little bit
Yeah,
about
the
that?
thing is, you're not going to be best friends with everybody, and that's okay.
Yeah.
But you've got to be, if you want a job somewhere, especially, you've got to be someone that other people like. And so you do that by, I mean, you don't start needless arguments, you don't get involved in drama, stuff like that. I mean, I don't think any of that's really a problem here, but
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure it exists, right? We're
Mhm.
a big organization, but one thing I see here is that everyone has the same goal, and
Yep.
everyone wants to be a great pilot, and I
Absolutely.
like that. And so that's why I ask. Maybe that's part of it too. And you're right, getting thinking about the bigger picture and things like that. Like what you just said, like you have to be somewhat likable on some level.
Hmm.
It's not like you have to be the most popular person, but if you're like disagreeable and unlikable, well, it's not going to get you very
No.
far, I guess.
Yeah.
Um, what I, I I have a lot of people who listen to this podcast, right?
Hmm.
And they're thinking about flying, or they're a student pilot now. Maybe they're a CFI. They're just trying to get a finger on what GA is like right now. So I want to ask you a few more questions about those sorts of things. Number one, first of all, I just got back from Sun and Fun. Have you ever been?
I wanted to go. So
Yeah, okay.
you know, Patrick was like in our employee meeting. He was like,
Mhm.
"Hey, if you're interested in going, let us know." And I didn't say anything because I was like, I'm a new instructor. I don't want to be that guy that takes off work in the first week.
Right.
But I wasn't that busy, and I was like, "Oh,
You
I
should have
should have
gone.
gone, man.
Should have gone. It was
Next
pretty
year, I'm
fun.
totally gonna go." But yeah,
Yeah.
I wanted to go.
Okay, gotcha. And well, I just really wanted to know if you were gonna go, if you've gone or not. It's really cool. We're gonna go again
I've
next
been to
year.
Oshkosh.
Okay, I'm
So
going to Oshkosh this year.
okay, yeah.
So we were like one of my
If
first
I can
times.
go, I'm totally gonna go. But yeah, it's the coolest experience.
Yeah, well, hey, maybe we'll see you out there. I
Yeah.
mean, we're always gonna need help out there too. So maybe be
Uh-huh.
talking to someone like,
Yeah.
one of the chiefs or something like that. And,
Yeah.
who knows? Maybe
Yeah,
there's
I'm
a
gonna
need
try
for it.
and go if I can.
Were you at Thrust Day recently?
Yes.
Yes. So we just did Sun and Fun. We just did Thrust Day. We're gonna do another Thrust Day over at the new Spinks location. And so, is there anything for those who are listening and haven't really done their research yet, and maybe they're interested in visiting a school just to check it out with no real pressure? Could you say something about how you would explain Thrust Day to them?
Yeah, Thrust Day. I mean, really, it's like a yearly celebration. This was our, I think, second one we've ever
Right.
done. But yeah, I mean, it's just a good time. There's like a dunk tank and
Yeah.
games and stuff like that. And like I actually had a student, one of my old students. He came for Thrust Day because he's considering coming to Thrust.
Right.
And he had a great time. I always see people. You never see anybody like sitting alone at Thrust Day. Like
Mhm.
I'd say don't be afraid to just show up with nobody else,
Right.
because you're gonna make friends.
Right.
Like my student came and I saw him like at the very beginning of when he was coming, and then I saw him like 30 minutes later. He's like, I made a bunch of friends. I'm like, nice, dude.
That's awesome.
So I mean, that's what Thrust is about.
Yeah.
It's a great community.
And that's why we want to have that event. I'm a part of like hosting the event,
Mhm.
obviously. But we really just want people who are going to take a tour to see like part of. Of course, it's not Thrust Day every day in there, right? We don't have dunk tanks every day.
Yeah.
It's not a big party every day, but I just try to encapsulate a little bit of the experience for one day for people who want to see what it could be like, that's the idea. If there's anyone out there who's thinking about starting flight training, what would you say to them? And maybe we don't know why they haven't yet, but assuming that they want to and they just haven't.
Yeah, I mean, if you've got the passion for it, do it. If you're in it for the money, I would say don't do it. Because it's a volatile industry. I mean, there's ups and downs. And so I mean, if you get furloughed from an airline, are you gonna? Do you enjoy flying enough that you'd go back to instructing?
Right.
And like I think people whose answer is no, like I don't know if it's the industry for you.
Right.
So, but yeah, I think if you've got the passion for it, take that next step.
Right.
I think that you don't want to get to where it's too late. The end of your life and be like, man, I wish I would have done that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's a good way to think about it. I think that it's easier to regret. I think regrets for what you haven't done are worse than regrets for what you've done.
Mm-hmm.
At times, I mean, maybe that's subjective to what you've done, but
yeah, it could be. Yeah.
But it's there's no real difference, at least in the feeling of regret.
Yeah.
So I can imagine. Thank you, Jackson, for joining us on another episode of Pilots Say What, where we get to hear what pilots have to say. Again, my name is Zach. We have this every week on all streaming platforms, including YouTube, if you want to watch. And if you're here towards the end here, and maybe this is your second episode or something like that, especially you, please subscribe, like, comment, subscribe. The whole thing helps us out a little bit for more people to find out about our podcast. And so we appreciate you guys for tuning in, and we'll see you next week.